Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We've got Ken Klippenstein on. He's got some exclusive reporting about what exactly is going on there in Portland, Oregon. We've also got Zed Jelani on with some new updates on that Harper's Open letter that, of course, we've covered here. But we wanted to start with a big interview that the president gave to Chris Wallace over the weekend.
Yeah, I have no words to describe much of this interview. It was a disaster pretty much all the way around for the president. And really, what he's hurting himself on most is coronavirus, really getting into a combative relationship over the mortality rate, whether it's real or fake, and really just spouting some things which are just not true. So let's take a listen to what he said.
But, sir, we have the 7th highest mortality rate in the world. Our mortality rate is higher than Brazil. It's higher than Russia. And the European Union has us on a travel ban.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, well, we have them on a travel ban too, Chris. I closed them off. If you remember, I was the one that did the European Union very early. But when you talk about mortality rates, I think it's the opposite. I think we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world.
We're going to take a look. We had 900 deaths on a single day.
We will take a look.
This week.
Ready?
You can check it out.
Could you please get me the mortality rate?
Yeah.
Kaylee's right here. I heard we have one of the lowest, maybe the lowest mortality rate anywhere in the world. Do you have the numbers, please? Because I heard we had the best mortality rate.
The case rate of similarly situated countries, as Dr. Burke points out, and this is
number one low mortality rate. I hope you show the scenario because it shows what fake news is all about. Okay,
I don't think I'm fake news, but we'll put
there you were.
We'll put our stats on.
You said we had the worst mortality rate in the world, and we have the best.
Yeah, I mean, getting into a squabble about the mortality rate, I think, is kind of it encapsulates what this is all about, which is that he kind of sees everything in the context of himself, right? So
yes.
It's like, oh, well, actually, no. Obviously, you can also tell his advisors are feeding him complete BS with charts about how great everything is going, which maybe is animating why he doesn't appear to be taking this seriously. And we're going to talk about this a lot, I think, throughout the show, because it's just so politically significant. You cannot underestimate how bad and how damaging these interviews are. Everybody is stuck at home. It's not like the normal stuff, right? Which is during normal times, everybody's going about their lives, they're living life, visiting friends, going to a concert, going to a movie, whatever. Can't do any of that anymore. So
right.
You look to the president, you look to the White House, you say, what is going on here? Is this person taking it seriously? And then you see with Trump, squabbling over the mortality rate. I think he said that he doesn't want a national mask mandate or whatever. And I don't know about the legality or whatever, but it just seems overall the message that is being projected is I am not necessarily taking this threat seriously.
Yeah.
And I am not taking it nearly as seriously as every single other American who are saying that this is the top issue animating my life and my choice whenever it comes to November.
No, it looks like all denialism, wishful thinking. I mean, you see there on the mortality rate, of course, Chris Wallace is correct.
He's correct. Yeah.
Which anyone who's following the news whatsoever knows we have now 140,000 Americans who have died. Mm-hmm. You look at what's going on around the world, and it's completely clear that we have failed in handling this in a way that many other countries have gotten right. He also was in denial about the number of cases, still spouting on about how, it's just because we have so many tests.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we have ramped up tests. That is a good thing. But the number of cases and the explosion of cases goes way beyond what that testing capacity is. And again, Chris Wallace had the numbers there and was able to challenge him. And he really either seems like he has no idea what's going on because his team, which he has selected to make sure that they feed him the type of information he wants to hear rather than what actual reality is, or he just wants to wish this thing away. And as you put it, look, in a normal time on a political issue, look, there's studies on this side, there's studies on that side. People can kind of decide what they want to believe on any number of issues. Here, it is affecting everything you do from the moment you get up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night. At this point, almost everyone in the country knows someone who has had coronavirus or had it themselves, right? It's so widespread. It so impacts every aspect of your life. And the fact that the president still at this point, he admitted, he said, there's embers, but there's also some places that have kind of caught on fire, a little bit in Florida, but it's mostly just embers that we're putting out. That is just not the reality at all, and it's certainly not what people are experiencing in their lives. So he looks so disconnected, so just out of it in terms of what people actually see is going on.
And you can see this in the polling. Look, people will give you a chance. As we said here, everyone gave Trump a chance in the very beginning.
They did.
His approval rating was actually pretty high. This is perfectly captured in a Washington Post ABC News poll. I'm also going to talk about this in my radar. But you can actually see here, first of all, based on the national polling, where was this in July 2016? Clinton was only up by 4 points, 47-43, basically within that margin of error. Biden's up 15 points. And also, this isn't the first poll in the last couple of days to find Biden up by 15 points in that. Let's also throw up the Washington Post ABC poll, A1F, which talks about how people are feeling about coronavirus vis-a-vis Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So you can see there his job approval rating here, 57% disapprove and 39% approve. And you can also see within that same poll, which I'll talk about, is that they are now prefer Biden over Trump on handling of coronavirus by 20 points. And the margin was only 2 back in March. So think about that, which is that we have now had a 20-point deficit in a zero-sum choice between Trump and his opponent on who they are going to choose on the issue which is most important to their lives. So I just think that the way that they're prosecuting everything here, especially against Biden, is just not working. And you can actually see that, really, in how he talks about Biden in the same interview. Let's take a listen to what he said.
I say he's not competent to be president. To be president, you have to be sharp and tough and so many other things. He doesn't even come out of his basement. They think, oh, this is a great campaign. So he goes in. I'll then make a speech. It'll be a great speech. And some young guys start writing. Vice President Biden said this. He didn't say it. Joe doesn't know he's alive, okay? He doesn't know he's alive. Biden wants to come in and ruin our country. Triple your taxes. He wants to do things. He wants to add regulations that I've all cut. And we still have regulation, a lot of regulation, but I've cut it down to a level that nobody ever thought possible. He will destroy this country, but it won't be him. It will be the radical left. The same type ideology that took over Venezuela, one of the richest countries in the world. They now have no water, they have no food, and they have no medicine.
Look, I mean, I don't even disagree with some of what he's saying, but the truth is, more polling on this is that the Fox News poll that came out this weekend is like, no, actually people trust Biden much more to handle coronavirus. They're basically tied whenever it comes to the economy and whenever it comes to prosecuting even mental fitness of the job, relatively tied between that, between Trump and Biden. So none of the attacks against Biden are landing, and that's because, as you said, Biden is irrelevant in this election. He's basically irrelevant. It's all about coronavirus, and they're blowing it.
Yeah, Biden is the default choice. And Trump has it all within his realm. I mean, he could have, at the beginning of this thing, when they're doing the daily briefings, and he seemed like he at least cared something about what was going on, and they were getting supplies out, and things were getting under control, and people were social distancing, and the caseload was going down, his approval rating was going up. The numbers were very close in the election. So it is directly related to everything that he's doing. And then the attack on Biden, like he's going to turn the country into Venezuela. Look, no one is going to buy this. No one is going to buy that Joe Biden is some scary left-wing radical Marxist who's going to abolish the suburbs and defund the police. I mean, Chris Wallace checked him on the defund the police thing, too, as other Fox News personalities have as well, which is a trend that we've been following. I mean, Trump has gotten so out of touch with reality that even Fox News is pulling him and his spokespeople back. Like, that's actually not the case. That's too far even for us at this point. And, you made a point, Saagar, and I think this is really what it comes down to is back in 2016, part of why Trump was so appealing was that he had this sense of sort of grievance in a way of like, no one's ever taken me seriously, right? This shared sense of grievance against elites that he really had in common with his base of like, they look down their nose at us. And he felt that deeply. It was part of his core appeal. Well, now that same sense of grievance, when you're the freaking president of the United States, you're just whining about how unfair it all is. Almost no one is buying that this is some Democratic Party plot to destroy your presidency. All they want to see is you actually getting things under control. And so the very last question that Chris Wallace asked the president was about how people would remember him and his presidency. And he made it not about any of his he made it all about how unfair it had all been to him. He put himself as the victim in this situation. Let's take a listen to that.
Whether it's in 2021 or 2025, How will you regard your years as President of the United States?
I think I was very unfairly treated. From before I even won, I was under investigation by a bunch of thieves, crooks. It was an illegal investigation.
But what about the
Russia,
good?
Russia,
What about the good parts there?
No, I want to go this. I have done more than any president in history in the first 3.5 years, and I've done it suffering through investigations where people have been, General Flynn, where people have been so unfairly treated. The Russia hoax, it was all a hoax. The Mueller scam, it was all a scam. It was all false. I made a bad decision on one bad decision, Jeff Sessions, and now I feel good because he lost overwhelmingly in the great state of Alabama. Here's the bottom line. I've been very unfairly treated, and I don't say that as paranoid. I've been everybody says it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but there's tremendous evidence right now as to how unfairly treated I was. President Obama and Biden spied on my campaign. It's never happened in history. If it were the other way around, the people would be in jail for 50 years right now. That would be Comey, that would be Brennan, that would be all of this, the two lovers, Strzok and Page. They would be in jail now for many, many years. They would be in jail. It would have started 2 years ago, and they'd be there for 50 years. The fact is, they illegally spied on my campaign. Let's see what happens. Despite that, I did more than any president in history in the first 3.5 years.
I mean, Saagar, he almost sounds already defeated there.
And
like he's making up the excuses for why he lost.
What really strikes me there is the chief problem with Russiagate, from a Democratic point of view, was that the country does not give a shit about Russiagate.
Right.
And now, in the middle of coronavirus, in the middle of this devastating pandemic, in the middle of the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, he's still litigating Russiagate. He's actually now on the opposite side of where the Democrats are, talking about an issue which nobody cares about right now. Yeah, I think Obamagate is real. Covered it here extensively on the show. Russiagate, all of it was nonsense. We debunked it here when those were the chief issues facing American politics.
Right.
That is not the chief issue facing American politics today. Being mired in this nonsense is just going to hand you a devastating defeat in November. And I'm, like I said, I'll talk even more about what the Trump campaign is doing and how foolish it is. But this paints a picture of somebody who is litigating, trying to do like petty litigation in terms of coronavirus, not taking it seriously, unmoored whenever it comes to how to define your opponent, and also mired down in scandals of yesterday and of yesteryear, which have nothing to do with what is going on right now. It just sends a picture to the American public who is deeply afraid.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you can't count on me in the middle of this.
And can't see beyond himself.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? That when you ask right now, at this moment, about his presidency and what it's going to mean, all about him, how unfair it was to him. And like you said, like we covered Russiagate here.
Yes.
No doubt about it, right? Of course, past presidents, President Obama might have some things to say about how unfairly he was treated by the Republicans as well, right? That's politics. But at this point, when lives are being lost, when people cannot live their normal lives, when you have mass unemployment and sickness, and you're going to focus on how unfair it all is to you, I just can't imagine anything that could possibly be more out of step with where the American people are. And by the way, he also sounds there very much like he is already figuring out the excuses for why he ultimately loses.
We'll see. All right.
More for you out of this. We're going to tell you what's on our radars. That's next.